This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Just for the Spell of It with Gary Moss. And, before we get started, Gary, I want to ask, how far are you from all the fires?
I think the closest one is at least 25 miles away. And today's the first day the smoke is letting up. Yeah, we're not close to the fires. I just, out of dumb luck, I happened to move to an area that is fire-free, pretty much. Although they do tell me that about 30 years ago, there were fires that were very close to where I am. But there's nothing to worry about right now.
Well, that's a good thing. But although I understand you did have some orange skies for a while.
Yeah, and actually, there was a lot of smoke yesterday, but that was because I burned a cheese sandwich that I was cooking.
Wow. Well, hey, at least you got in the mode of smoke. So
Yeah,
okay.
I was able to empathize with my neighbors.
Right. Well, today you're going to talk about Scrabble. That's what we typically talk about. So,
Yep.
what's new that you want to share?
Well, I want to talk about how you look at the board and location, location, location when it comes to the words and where we place them on the board and the kind of scores that we can create. A lot of times when folks are, when we learned to play Scrabble years ago, there weren't clubs. And before there were clubs, people just played words. They obviously got scores for words, but they weren't playing them necessarily in the right spots to get the best words,
Okay.
best scores, and that's what I'd like to begin with. However, before we begin today, I want to do something a little bit different. I created a tool for us to use during this session, and it's on the website. So I'm going to ask everyone to, if you can't both listen and go to this other page, you can just pause or turn the website off right now, then go to the website, www.justthespellofit.com. When the website comes up, if you look on the left-hand side of the page, are all the other pages that are in this website, and click on Learning Tools. And when you click on that and the page comes up, the first thing you'll see is a Scrabble board with a bunch of letters and numbers surrounding it. So right now, stop the podcast if you need to, and bring up that other page that we can refer to.
Now, if they have a Scrabble board, could they just open up their Scrabble board too?
Well, the numbers and letters are going to be more helpful.
Okay.
But if you can't do that, just have a Scrabble board out there, and I'll try to do some explaining.
Okay.
That will help you. So just pause and then come back in a minute or two. Now, Karen, we don't have to pause here
No,
because...
of course we don't. because they're pausing
They're,
us.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, folks. So now that you have the Scrabble board tool that I created for you, notice all the numbers and letters surrounding it. Now, the reason for those numbers and letters is so that while I'm talking with you, we can communicate about specific places on the board. It works like the road maps, okay, that we don't use anymore because we all have the GPS that tells us where to go. But long before GPS, they used these kinds of grids to locate places on a map. So notice that across the top, horizontally, are the letters A through O. Each column is given a letter name. And then notice on the left-hand side of the board are the numbers 1 to 15. And each one of those numbers identifies a row, 15 rows. Now, let me give you a couple little exercises here. See the star in the middle of the board?
Yep.
What letter and number would indicate that spot? If I wanted to talk about that spot, use the letter first, then the number. Can you figure it out,
sure.
Karen?
So as I look at it, I'm going to call that H8.
Yeah, that is perfect. Okay, so now look in the upper left-hand corner, the red square, which is a triple word score.
Mm-hmm.
What's the name of that spot using the coordinates?
That would be A1.
Right. And then let's look at the second row from the bottom. There are two blue squares. And what are the names of those two blue squares?
So the first one would be G13, and the second one.
No, it's not. It's not G. The dark blue.
Oh, the dark blue. I'm sorry. I went up one square, one row. So we're talking about F14 and J14.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. So now all these colored spots are referred to as HotSpots. And the HotSpots enable you to get the highest possible scores when you're playing your words. So when let's say you're going first and you're going to play a word, where does the first word have to be in the game of Scrabble?
Well, you have to cover the star. So you can go horizontally or vertically. Doesn't make a difference.
Oh, very good. So remember, you cannot go diagonally, but the word has to cover the spot. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some words, and then we'll talk about where those spots might go.
Okay.
Or where the word might go to try to get the highest possible score.
Okay.
And I'm also going to give you some other tips when I do this. Okay. So I'm going to use some words from the Word of the Day list.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So the first word, and if I pronounce these wrong, don't hold it against me. Most of the words on the Word of the Day list are less common words that we rarely see, let alone speak. Okay?
Okay.
So the first, and I'll spell it for you
Okay.
just to help you out. So the first word is Xyster, Xyster.
Okay.
Xyster.
Okay.
All right. It's a surgical instrument for scraping bones.
Okay.
Okay. So now let's say you had that word and you knew the word, and now you want to place it onto the board. You're playing that, you're first, and you're
Okay.
putting that word on the board. Where do you put it to get the most points?
So I could either start it at H4 going um, going down, or I could place it at um, D8 going across.
Excellent. And you would put the X there because it's the highest scoring tile in the word Xyster.
Right.
Now, one of the things that I tell people about getting the best score is you always look at your rack if you're going first to find a word that's 5 letters long or longer because there's 5 spaces from that double letter score to the center star. Now, you can start the word out, you can put it anywhere as long as you cross that uh, space with the star at H8. And let's look at a couple other ways we could have played Zeister.
Okay.
We could have put the X at C8, and it would still reach to the star. But if we put the X there, we're going to get double value for the Y.
Right.
So let's say we played it properly, X on the D8 spot going across. How many points would that create?
So you'd get 10 for the X.
X is 8 points.
Oh, 8 points? Okay, so that's 16 for the X. Y is 4 points?
Yeah.
Okay, and then S is 1, T is 1, E is 1, and R is 1. So you're going to get 21, 22, 20, 24 points.
Okay. However, when you play your first word and you cross the star, which is pink, it's a double word score.
Oh. Okay. See, I've been playing too much words with friends, and you don't get that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it would be worth 48 points. Now, let's say I wasn't really thinking about where the best place is to play, and I started with the X at C8. So the X would not be doubled, the Y would be doubled.
Right. So we'd end up with 20 points, and then when you double it, 40. So we would have lost 8 points. Yeah.
That's right. So depending where we put these letters, it makes a difference in the point value that we earn. Everyone see that? Okay. Now, some people might put the X on the star, and let's do that. X, Y, S, T, E, R.
8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you're still going to get 20 points if I counted it.
26 because one of
the
those,
two, yeah,
the
yep,
E is going to be 2.
right.
Okay. All right, let's try another word. Another word is Cisco. Cisco. It's a freshwater fish.
So,
where would you play Cisco to get the best score?
so again, this is our first word of the play.
Yeah.
So again, I would either put it at H4 going down or D8 going across. That way I would get the double points on the first C, which would be 6, and then 1 for the I, 1 for the S, another 3 for the C, and a 1. So I would get 9, 10, 11, 12 points. And then
Okay.
because I'm on the C, do I get double points then?
Because you're hitting the star, you
Yeah.
get double
Okay.
points.
All right. So I would end up with 24 points that round.
Okay. Now, let's take a look at a short word. You don't always have a 5-letter word on your rack. Okay.
Right.
Now you have, let's say you have the word red, R-E-D.
Okay.
How and where, or where would you play red if that was your first play of the game? Where would you put the R in red?
So I could put it at G8 or G8 going across, obviously.
Okay.
Or H7 going down.
H7 going down. Okay. Could I also play it going across at F8?
F8. Yeah.
Okay. Could I also play it with the R at H8?
Yeah, you could do that as well.
Okay.
But the
Why?
reason, well, the reason
Go
I'm
ahead.
not doing that is because up above, in connection to that, the next play, somebody can use the 3-letter space to build off of it. Whereas where I put it, you'd only have the 2-letter spaces. So
Well, you're right in what you said, except those spaces are double letter scores. Those light blue.
Right.
All right.
I see. So they could actually maybe get more points there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
is a defensive tip. Try very hard not to put a vowel on the white square between the 2 double letter scores.
Got it.
All right. So this is another simple tip that most people don't think about when they play words where they have a choice. Now, with a word like red, R-E-D, you can avoid putting, it only has one vowel. You can avoid putting the vowel between the premium hotspots by putting it on the star. And that would put a consonant R and a consonant D between those hotspots.
Got it. Okay.
Okay? So let's say we didn't keep that in mind when we played it. Let's say by accident or by just not knowing, we played the R at F8 and we played R-E-D,
Okay.
and we put the E between the two hotspots, the double letter scores.
Okay.
Okay, now it's our opponent's turn, and they happen to have an X on their rack. Okay?
Okay.
And they're going to play a simple two-letter word like EX from their rack.
Yep.
And we've opened the door for them to play their X on the double letter score, the hotspot. But they're playing it in two directions because their E is going to go under the R and their X is going to be on the double letter score. And how many points are they going to earn just by playing EX?
Well, on the X alone, they're going to get 32 points.
Yeah.
And then the E's are worth 1 each, but it's double. So, well, you're making me do my math now. Don't like this. 2, 4. So we said 30. Wait a second. 32 and plus 4 and so are they 37 points? Did I do that right?
Missed by one.
Oh,
36.
Okay.
32 plus 2 for the E they played.
Okay.
34 and
but
36.
But they also get for the R.
Yep.
Okay.
But the R and the E is what they play them under.
Okay.
And those are both ones.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's a little hard doing this. It's easier because we have the tool, but this would have been done better if we had the visual of me actually doing it at a board where you could watch it.
And actually, we can do that on another one when we do a Zoom, and we can invite people to actually watch it.
Well, the next time I try to do something like this, maybe I'll suggest it ahead of time, and we'll plan it out. All right, another word that I'm going to give you. Now, I just told you don't put any vowels between hotspots.
Okay.
Now, we don't always have that ability, because let's say we have a word like read, R-E-A-D. What do you do with that word? Where do you put it? It's the first play of the game. Let's say your rack was R, D, and 5 vowels. So you're going to play R-E-A-D as your play because you have another 3 vowels on the rack. Okay. Where do you play it to get the most points and to, at the same time, think a bit defensively, if you can?
So what I think I would do is I would start with the R at H7 going down. So it'd be R between the two hotspots. Oh no. Mm-hmm. No, wait a second. R between the two dark blue hotspots. Okay?
Yeah.
So H6. And then E at H7, then A at H8, and then D at H9.
Okay. So you see, with a word like read, you can't avoid putting a vowel between two of the hotspots.
Right.
All right. So that's okay. But there's something better you can do than that.
So
this is sort of a trick question.
okay.
Look for an anagram. You have READ.
Right.
You also could make
deer.
DARE.
Oh. Yeah, but
using all 4 letters.
Oh, so then I could do that from E8 across. So it'd be, no, wait a second. Yeah, DARE.
Yeah,
so the R would be between the 2 hotspots.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm trying to teach you how to think here because it's not common that people do this. And it's going to earn more points for you in a way by keeping your opponent from getting higher scores.
Okay.
All right. So let me give you another word to put on the board here. The word is impi, I-M-P-I. It's a body of warriors. Impi. Where could you put that as your first play?
So I could do that at H8, going down. So it'd be IMPI. So I'm staying away from my hotspots. Or I could do it at E8 the same way. Well, no. I take that back. Not E8.
Well, it could work at E8, starting with an I going across.
Yeah, but if I do it at F8, well, either way, I guess I'm going to be near a hotspot.
No.
No, I'm not. Oh, if I did it, like, I guess I was right, at E8, IMPI. So the P would be between the 2 hotspots.
Right.
Okay.
This makes us think a lot more, doesn't it?
Well, it certainly does, and it's interesting because, a lot of times, like when you gave me the word read, okay, the only other word I saw in read initially was deer, and that wasn't going to help me, with the 2 vowels there. But when you came up with deer, it was like, oh, now I see where I can, lessen, my competitor of using both hotspots. So it does take more thinking, but it's exciting because you're really challenging yourself more.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times when we're looking for an anagram, we find one, but we stop looking.
Yes.
And a lot of times sets of letters contain more than one other word. So that's what would happen if you found deer. You would pat yourself on the back and stop looking.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you found one. But when you find a word, my rule is pause, find another word. When you're deciding where to play, find your play, count the score, find a better play. Okay?
Okay.
Now, that pause is hard for people to learn to do because we're so motivated to find words and put them down on the board. We do that and we feel satisfied. But it comes back to haunt us many times because we weren't thinking about the defensive position of our play.
Exactly.
Now, as I asked you where to put these words. Some of the time you were looking at playing a word vertically as opposed to horizontally. Which is better, vertical or horizontal?
Well, I think if you're a good defensive player, you will play vertical when you can because it's not as easy to see the word.
That's exactly right. There's no advantage to you in terms of the scores you can earn because the way the board is set out, it doesn't. You can earn if you're playing the same word. Let's say Cisco. You can start it coming down at H4,
right,
or
same.
you can start it going across at D8. You'll get the same score. But many times, players are less proficient coming back to your play when you've played it vertically, because people are more used to looking horizontally at words.
Right.
And so you can throw your opponent off. And I'm just suggesting that you consider playing vertically when you can. But think about it, look at it, see how it's going to look before you make the play. Now, one of the things that happens when we're playing competitively at club, and this is also true with some of the online versions of the game, there's a time factor, there's a clock that's ticking away. We get a total of 25 minutes for our portion of the game when we're playing. And so you want to get comfortable playing at the board and doing this extra thinking about where you're going to play by practicing. And how do you practice when you're home alone during this COVID time? Because you can't invite your friend in generally. It's very difficult to impossible to distance yourself 6 feet away from someone else while playing Scrabble.
Right.
And the other negative about playing against someone else is you're both putting your hand into the same bag and touching all those tiles. And then inadvertently your hand goes to your face, which you shouldn't do anyways, but it's a regular thing that goes on. So play solitaire Scrabble. I play a solitaire Scrabble game at least once a day. And it goes a lot faster, or it can go a lot faster, because you're not playing it and waiting for someone else.
Sure.
And because, because you're playing solitaire, you can play every turn yourself, or sometimes I play my right hand against my left hand, so I have two sets of tiles. Actually, my right hand is leading my left hand.
Okay.
Over the course of the last 1,000 games, my right hand has won 720 times. So that's a big discrepancy.
Sure.
So the way I play the game of solitaire, let's say I'm just using one rack. I put 7 tiles on the rack. I find the words that I can possibly play, and then I play the word where I'm going to get the greatest score. Okay?
Okay.
And record the score, actually, because now, if I'm doing this in a learning mode, after I choose my best score, I might pull out my handheld word finder and type in the letters from my rack and see what it came up with.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. I can, when I'm playing at Scrabble in learning mode, I can play it one of two ways. I can just keep the word that I found and write down in the column or on my notepad what I should have played or what I could have played. Or I can take the word that I found off the board and put that better play on the board. When I'm putting the better play on the board, I'm touching the tiles, I'm putting it on the board, I'm getting a visual on the board by just looking at it, and I've done three things with the word already. Having looked it up is a fourth thing that I've done, and then I might write it down on my pad. That's a fifth thing. So I'm having an interaction with the word, which is going to help me
remember it.
Think of that word when I see those letters. All right? And your word finder is going to come up with a lot of weird things. One of my favorite words that draws many challenges, or at least stops my opponent cold in their tracks, is the word unmew. U-N-M-E-W. I learned that when someone played it against me in one of the first times I ever went to club about 30 years ago. I mean, what it makes me think, and I would imagine most people think, of a cat.
Yeah.
Well, how does a cat unmew? That's ridiculous, isn't it?
It sounds
but
like
unmew has nothing to do with a cat. U-N-M-E-W is a verb, and it means to set free. So you could add in ing and ed, things you can do to a verb. So that puts me also, by playing a word that my opponent doesn't know, they don't know if they can add an S to it or what to do. So where would I play unmew if it was my first play? Let's go back and look at the board.
Okay, so I would start on H8.
Okay.
And I could go down so that the W is on the double letter, or I could go
very good
horizontally and end up on the double letter.
So either of those are fine, and if you really want to mess with your opponent's head, play it going down vertically.
Right.
And so it would be 8, 11, 50. That's a 30-point play. We're starting with the U and the star going either vertically or horizontally.
Right.
Now, I'm thinking ahead to my next play. What I might do with unmew if I'm fortunate to get the letters. Because I'm playing a 5-letter word with, let's look horizontally for now.
Okay.
Unmew with a W on the double letter score. I'm only 3 spaces from the triple word score. What could I do to unmew to reach the triple word score on my next turn?
Well, if I have an ing, I could have
Perfect.
the unmewing. Yep.
Yep, that would be perfect. Now, my opponent isn't thinking about that at all. My opponent doesn't know what to do with unmew, so they're probably not going to block that. And if I'm lucky enough to pick up ing and play that, that's going to be 4, 7, 10, 13, 39 points on my next play.
So you're already most likely far ahead of your opponent in 2 plays.
I would imagine so, yeah.
So now let me ask you a question. Let's say I don't get the ing, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say I get ed or I get s, all right? Does it make sense for me to, let's say, put the s on it and then go horizontally, for the double letter or even all the way up to the double word if I had the right letters? Because that would sort of keep my opponent away from that triple word score. No.
I wouldn't spend too... No, that's good strategy. If I had any inclination at all that my opponent, you know who your opponent is, if they're a better player. If they're a strong player, I would try to block that, just like you suggested.
Okay.
If I can't play ing and I have an S, which will also play there, I would look for my best play, and I would look for whatever my best play on my rack is. Now, here's the thing with Scrabble. There's not always a best. The highest scoring play is not always the best. Sometimes, if there are hot spots that give your opponent an advantage to play a word that, will hook and it'll create a two-way score, it might be best to block those spots. So if I have an S and I have a word that can reach to the double word score, that sounds like it's a good thing to do.
Okay.
But there isn't anything written in stone which is best. You have to become your own judge here in looking at the board, looking at the letters that you have. You want to use those hot spots. Sometimes you don't have any choice but setting your opponent up, because you're going to make your best play, but it's going to leave you vulnerable in some areas.
Sure.
So we're judging every play. And again, I come back to the point that most players don't think that way. They see a word, they play the word. So I'm trying to get everyone to see the word, pause, look for a better word. Okay. See the word and where you're going to play it, look for a better play. And while you're doing all of these things, you're multitasking, and you have to keep cognizant of the amount of time that you're using. Some people don't have a concept of time in their head and how much time is going by. And they'll sit there and they'll think and they'll think and they'll think. 4 minutes runs off the board, and then they play a simple play for 5 points. Don't do that. Try to build an awareness of how time is flowing past you. There's a delicate balance of using time to think and getting lost in the idea. We've experienced this in our lives.
Oh, sure.
Where
Absolutely.
all of a sudden you sort of nudge yourself from being transfixed on some thinking or idea, and a whole hour went by. How did that happen? It happens because of the way we do things.
Right.
But if you're making conscious effort, and when you're playing this solitaire Scrabble game I'm suggesting, play with a time clock. If you're going to tell me that you don't have a time clock, I'm going to tell you you don't even know it, but you have one. And almost everybody's phone,
yes, absolutely,
there's a time clock. And if not, you can download an app for free to give you a time clock.
Right.
And you can even the kind of clocks that we use at Scrabble Club with two faces.
Right.
That's available in an app. And so if you don't want to go out and buy a chess clock that we use for playing Scrabble, you can save yourself $50, $60, $70 by doing it on your phone.
Right.
And there are some people that use their phones for that function at club, but the choice is up to you.
Absolutely. Well, this was fun because it got me to thinking, and it made me realize that I don't play as defensively as I would like to. And even though I look for the HotSpots, I didn't look for them in the same way that you were having me do that today. So I'm hoping those listening, will take the time and, try it out. And like you even suggested, you could even just print out this this page and use it as a guide when you're playing.
Yeah. And if you're doing the solitary Scrabble thing, or if you're just practicing putting words down, use the words from the word of the day list as practice words. I don't know how many of you look every day at the word of the day list, but I continually choose words that are lesser known words. And last Friday, for instance, I used a word factice, Factice. I didn't know that word when I chose it. It's a rubber-like material, and it looks like practice.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And so I think I'll be able to remember practice. The day before, I had the word pillion, Pillion, which, rhymes with million.
Right, yeah.
Or trillion, or billion. But if you have a combination, and let's say you had billion, but there's a P on the board, what would you play, billion or pillion? You pick the one that your opponent doesn't know. When I was new to the game, I would try to be sneaky. So when I would play the word pillion, I would sort of put my head down and sigh like I made a mistake. And every once in a while I would catch a unsuspecting opponent who would yell,
it.
challenge,
Ah,
and then I would break up laughing.
well,
So you can have a lot of fun with words if you allow yourself to do that. And I encourage you all to do this sort of things.
well, thank you for this fun podcast today. I'm hoping many of you got something out of it like I did. And I'm looking forward to this pandemic to be over so that, if nothing else, Gary, maybe we can even meet in Las Vegas and, play a game of Scrabble or something. That would be fun.
Oh, I'll drink to that.
I'm sure you would. Well, have a great day, and we'll do this again next week, okay?
Okay,
Thanks.
you take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.